I recently went through a situation no pilot ever wants to deal with. A Karen I knew tried to swap seats by faking a medical excuse right behind me. Her reasoning? She claimed it was an urgent matter. In reality, the only thing finalized that day was her permanent ban. But let me roll things back to where it began. My name's Evan Cross, and I make my living in the skies. Flying demands two things above all else: keeping calm and paying attention to details. When you're responsible for 180 passengers at 37,000 feet, you train yourself to block out distractions and focus only on what matters: the steady hum of engines, the flash of a warning light, the faint shift in cabin pressure. You learn to trust your instincts when something small feels wrong. Most days, it's long stretches of routine broken by short bursts of absolute focus. But today, the trouble wasn't in the cockpit. It started before takeoff at gate C12, to be exact. And its name was Karen Lane. Back in the neighborhood, she was the self-proclaimed ruler of our HOA, the kind who swung the rulebook like a weapon. Here, in the anonymous shuffle of the airport, she was just another traveler trying to push her weight around. I wasn't in uniform. I was deadheading, traveling as a passenger to position myself for my next flight. Just a red polo, jeans, and sneakers. My ticket said Seat 2A, First Class, a small job perk. Nobody in that terminal knew I was crew. While scrolling my phone, I heard her. Her voice grated like sandpaper. "You don't understand," she said, dripping arrogance. "I'm a platinum member. I booked first class. Seat 2A's my seat. There's been a mistake." The gate agent, Brenda, according to her name tag, kept her cool. She typed away calmly, unfazed. "Ma'am, your ticket is for 3B. Seat 2A is already assigned to another passenger who's checked in." Karen leaned closer, invading Brenda's space. "Then unassign him. I have status. I need that seat for medical reasons." Leg room. I glanced at my long legs. At 6'2", I appreciate space, but I don't use it as leverage. Karen, barely 5'4" in sharp walking shoes, was clearly exaggerating. Brenda's professional smile didn't waver. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The flight is full. Without the passenger's consent, I can't reassign. Seat 3B has plenty of legroom as well." It was, of course, a polite lie. Karen's annoyance boiled into fury. Her blonde hair seemed to bristle as she snapped, "This is unacceptable. I spend thousands with this airline. Get me a supervisor." I slipped my phone into my pocket. The show was officially underway. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was my wife, Lena. Her text read, "You won't believe what the HOA just pulled. Karen's forcing an emergency vote tonight over some zoning variance." I smirked and typed back, "Funny you mention her. She's here currently trying to hijack my seat." Lena's reply was instant, a single exploding head emoji. I watched as Brenda stood her ground. The supervisor arrived, looking tired but solid. The conversation played out again, only with a bit more authority behind the words. Karen raised her voice, waving her hands, drawing stares from nearby passengers. But I'd seen this scene too many times. Airline staff are trained soldiers. They've seen every trick, heard every excuse. They don't bend to bluster. Finally, the supervisor laid down the law. "Ma'am, 2A is taken. You can sit in 3B or we'll rebook you tomorrow. Double quotes checkmate. Brenda called for pre-board. Ops copy. Pilot at C12. Keep the lane clear." Her calm words carried weight and the crowd noticed. A few people even looked my way, but I kept my focus on my phone. Karen's face turned crimson. She snatched her boarding pass for 3B and glared around the gate, her eyes hunting for the culprit in her imagined throne theft. Her gaze landed on me. I didn't flinch. Just met her stare, calm and unreadable. She had no idea who I was, and I planned to keep it that way. Her look, though, was familiar. The same venom she'd used on my neighbor Mike when his roses crossed property lines by an inch. A look that promised, "I'll find a rule and I'll use it to break you." Boarding began. I let others go first, shaking my head at the pre-board offer. No need to draw eyes. As I walked the jet bridge, I felt her glare burning my back. I settled into 2A, stowed my bag, and opened a thriller novel. No drinks never while on duty, even deadheading. Just water and quiet. Karen came aboard shortly after, storming the aisle like a soldier. She stopped at my row, saw me in 2A, and sniffed in disdain before squeezing into 3B behind me. She exaggerated every move, sighing loudly while jamming her oversized carry-on beneath the seat. As I buckled up, that quiet instinct in my gut whispered, "Pay attention." This wasn't just about a seat. This was about someone who believed the world should bend to her will, and when it didn't, she looked for ways to break it. What I didn't realize yet was that this tantrum at the gate was only her warm-up act. The real danger was about to unfold thousands of feet above the ground. The thing about my line of work is you become a sharp observer of human nature. Hours in a sealed cabin with strangers teaches you patterns. Nervous flyers gripping armrests. Business travelers asleep before takeoff. Parents juggling kids in chaos. You learn what fits the mold and what doesn't. That's when he appeared. A man in a too shiny suit stepped into first class, sharp as if styled for a magazine cover of villains. His slicked hair gleamed, his shoes mirrored light, and a massive gold signet ring clung to his pinky like a weapon. His boarding pass, though, belonged in the back of the plane. Yet there he stood, pacing near the galley by the cockpit, murmuring urgently into his phone. His energy was restless, agitated. One of the attendants, Sarah, was organizing bags with her back turned. Suddenly, the man stepped back, bumping her hard enough to make her stumble. "Oh, apologies," he said smoothly, catching her arm. For a moment, his ringed hand hovered near the open zipper of her tote bag, moving just long enough to seem deliberate. He pulled his hand back, flashing a practiced, too bright smile. "Terribly sorry about that. This call has me all wound up." Sarah, still startled but maintaining her professionalism, gave him a polite nod. "It's fine, sir." "No problem." He ended the call with a crisp, "It's taken care of," before striding toward economy and vanishing from sight. To anyone else, it looked like a harmless slip-up. A stressed businessman distracted by work. But to me, it was too polished. Too rehearsed. That stumble hadn't been clumsy, it was executed with precision. His body shielded the movement, his hand went exactly where it needed to go, and it lingered just long enough that it wasn't an accident. It was a plant. My brain started stitching together fragments I didn't even know were connected. Lena's earlier text resurfaced. Karen's forcing through an emergency HOA vote tonight. The follow-up message explained more. A slick developer had been scooping up distressed properties around our neighborhood. His plan? A massive, high-density apartment complex that would choke our quiet streets and tank our property values. All he needed was one final county variance and the HOA's official blessing. Most residents opposed it. But Karen, ever the queen, was pushing harder than anyone. If she staged a surprise vote with half the community away or unprepared, she could muscle it through. And the man with the gold ring? He fit the profile perfectly: slick, expensive, radiating predatory confidence. I glanced back at Karen in 3B. She was hunched over her phone, thumbs flying, a sly smile tugging at her lips. This wasn't about a seat anymore. She was waiting for something. She was tied to him, to the bump, to whatever he'd slipped into that bag. My instincts flared. That wasn't candy in there. Training took over. Stay calm. Don't tip your hand. Watch. Record every detail. I logged the flight attendant's name, Sarah. I clocked the time. I fixed the exact spot of the bag in memory. The details might seem small, but I knew better details solve puzzles. The cabin door sealed with a reassuring thud. The safety demo began, passengers barely glancing up. Everything looked ordinary. But I knew better. Sarah shifted her tote from the closet into the row 3 overhead bin, saying she'd latch it tight. I knew it wasn't just her tote anymore, it was compromised. The engine spooled, deep and powerful. We pushed back, taxied out. A knot of unease settled in my gut. This wasn't just a repositioning flight anymore. Whatever game Karen and her developer friend were playing had followed me from my neighborhood straight into the sky. The question now was, how far would I go to protect what was mine? Only this time, my home wasn't outside my window. It was 30,000 feet beneath me. And the threat was locked in the cabin. The jet turned onto the active runway, engines roaring. We were committed. And the chilling thought hit me, whatever that man planted wasn't meant to let us reach our destination. The first hour passed in uneasy calm. We leveled at cruising altitude, seatbelt sign off, drinks rolling down the aisle. I stuck with water. Across from me, Karen sipped a mimosa and launched into a tirade about declining airline service, loud enough for half the cabin to hear. Then she set her phone on the tray. The red recording light blinked. She was live streaming. Of course. Playing to her loyal audience of HOA followers, painting herself as the victim once again. My phone buzzed. Lena again. This time, a radar screenshot. A monstrous line of storms boiling across our route. Reds, purples, yellows, the works. Her text, looks rough. Stay safe, I replied, probably just reroute. Standard procedure. But when I glanced outside, the sky to the west was bruising into dark gray. The captain's voice came overhead, steady but serious. Folks, we've got some weather building ahead. We'll do our best to find a smooth path, but expect bumps. I'm turning the seatbelt sign on. The lights flickered once, twice. Nervous murmurs rippled through the cabin. The plane jolted, light at first, then harder like tires over gravel. Flight attendants strapped in, carts locked. The mood shifted from relaxed to taut. I'd flown through far worse. But here, with Karen and her partner in play, every tremor felt heavier. Then came the chime. Repeated. Urgent. Karen's row. A flight attendant rushed over. Ma'am, are you okay? Karen's voice rang out, shrill with panic. This man, he can't breathe. He's having a heart attack. I leaned forward. Her seatmate slumped, pale, motionless. It looked real, but my gut screamed it was staged. Karen fanned him dramatically with a safety card, shouting for a doctor, making sure her phone caught every angle. The crew sprang into action, calm and efficient. A nurse stepped up from the cabin, working with the attendants to assess him. But Karen wouldn't stop hovering, spouting nonsense diagnoses, narrating it all into her live stream. The airline isn't prepared. This man needs a hospital. The turbulence is killing him. She cried, theatrics in full force, and the timing was too perfect. The storm. The medical scare. Karen's loud performance. None of it felt random. It felt like a script that I knew. The truth. Medical diversions are no joke. They cost airlines millions. Fuel, landing fees, connections missed. You don't divert unless it's truly life-threatening. The nurse worked calmly. The man was conscious, breathing, though dazed. She tried for vitals, but turbulence shook the cabin, making it nearly impossible. Then bang! The plane hit a pocket and dropped hard. Passengers screamed. A galley cart rattled loose, slamming against its latch. Through it all, Karen kept filming, narrating disaster to her audience. The captain's voice broke in again, still steady but urgent now. Flight attendants, prepare for landing. Due to a medical emergency and deteriorating weather, we're diverting to the nearest suitable airport. Touchdown in approximately 30 minutes. A low buzz of chatter swept the plane. A diversion. I glanced at the seatback map. I already knew. Only one major airport lay within 30 minutes range. Our home field. The very one Lena could reach in 20 minutes. The very one hosting tonight's HOA vote. And suddenly, it all clicked out. The fake medical drama was the excuse. The storm was the cover. The planted item in Sarah's bag was the leverage. This whole orchestrated nightmare was about one thing: getting Karen Lane home in time to push her vote through. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just manipulation. They had risked 180 lives in the sky for a real estate deal. The descent began, the aircraft banking hard into the line of weather. Rain hammered the windows like fistfuls of gravel. The cabin tightened into a single-held breath. Metal groaned. Air screamed, and I knew, absolutely, that the worst wasn't past us yet. We were cutting straight through the storm's heart. Turbulence built into a savage rhythm. Seasoned travelers gripped armrests as the fuselage creaked and everything not bolted down rattled. My senses were keyed. Pilots learn to listen to an airplane the way a musician listens to an instrument. What sounds are right, and which ones spell trouble. Then I heard a tiny metallic click, almost lost in the thunder. It came from an overhead bin 2 rows ahead on the opposite side. It wasn't the solid thunk of a latched bin. It was a fragile little noise, an engaged latch that wasn't actually secured. In smooth air, it would be a nuisance. In this chop, an unlatched bin becomes a weapon. A heavy bag could launch from it and maim someone. I fixed on that bin. On the next big jolt, the door flexed, just a whisper of movement. I don't alarm the cabin. That's not my way. I unbuckled, kept low behind seatbacks, and made my way forward to the galley where the lead flight attendant, Maria, sat strapped in. Her brow lifted when she saw me approach. Passengers should stay seated in this turbulence, I said, my voice quiet and controlled so it didn't reach the rest of the cabin. Row 3, right side overhead. The latch sounded off when it closed. It might be loose. I didn't announce. I'm a pilot. I didn't need to. Clear. Calm facts are all you need. Maria's face tightened. She understood immediately. Thanks. Stay here. She unstrapped and moved with the practiced balance of someone used to working on a pitching deck. She pressed on the bin. It swung open without resistance. Her face went pale. It wasn't a passenger suitcase inside. It was Sarah's crew bag, the same one the ringed man had bumped. Maria snapped the door closed with a definitive click that echoed, then looked at me with a hard, knowing calm. She reached for the interphone and spoke in clipped, coded phrases. Possible device forward overhead. Following procedure. Her voice was the trained, measured cadence of emergencies. She was declaring a level 2 threat, a suspicious item that could threaten the flight. My heart beat hard, but my head was cold. This wasn't a petty prank. It was something dangerous placed aboard deliberately. The plane shuddered again. The unsecured service cart in the galley broke free on a violent jolt and began to roll down the aisle, heavy beast of metal and trays. A little boy had unbuckled to chase a toy. There was no time. I threw myself into the path, shoulder first, and slammed into the cart, absorbing the impact. Metal and plastic collided with bone. The cart slammed into the forward bulkhead and stopped. I grabbed the boy, buckled him back in, and heard a woman sobbing relief. Flight attendants scrambled to secure the galley and restrain loose items. Maria's eyes met mine, respect and urgency burning there. Thank you, she whispered. I shrugged. Part of the job. Which job? It didn't matter anymore. The safety of everyone on this airplane had become mine. The cockpit's reply crackled over the interphone. Lock it down. Clear. No drama, just command. The reinforced door sealed. We were a fortress now. Maria moved fast and quiet. Level 2 by the book, she ordered the cabin crew. They would move the suspect item to the LR Balil, the least risk bomb location at the rear galley, the sacrificial spot designed to channel an explosion away from critical systems. It's grim procedure everyone drills but prays they never use. Place a potential device against a part of the fuselage designed to blow outward, minimizing catastrophic harm to the flight controls. Sarah, pale and shaking, stood beside her bag. Maria steadied her with a hand on the shoulder. You did nothing wrong. Now we work. We keep everyone safe. Maria's eyes cut toward the cabin, 100 passengers strapped in, blissfully unaware. The crew moved with surgical precision, every gesture calm, quiet, controlled. One attendant picked up the intercom. Her voice was velvet smooth, reassuring. Folks, for your continued safety as we navigate this weather, we ask that you remain seated with your seat belts fastened. The crew will be conducting a final safety check. No mention of a bomb. No talk of threats. Panic spreads faster than fire, and their job was to smother it before it sparked. 2 attendants approached row 3. They opened the overhead with care and lifted Sarah's tote as though it were a relic of glass. Step by deliberate step, they carried it down the aisle. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. That's when I saw him. Row 14, sea gray jacket, paperback in hand. But he wasn't reading anymore. His eyes locked on the bag, his posture coiled tight. A predator ready to move. He hadn't twitched during the turbulence. He hadn't flinched when the service cart went rogue. But now he was alert. The air marshal. They wear no uniform, no badge. They blend into the crowd until the moment they're needed. And this one was very much awake. His presence steadied me even as it sharpened the stakes. If he was keyed in, the danger was real. Up in first class, Karen Lane was still narrating into her phone, voice pitched in false urgency for her live stream. The crew seems panicked, she whispered dramatically. They're moving baggage around in the middle of a storm. Total incompetence. The irony almost choked me. The very crew she accused of chaos were the ones holding this cabin together with nerves of steel. Heroes in polyester, fighting to keep her alive. At the back of the plane, the flight attendants disappeared with the tote. I couldn't see, but I knew the drill. The LR Balil East risk bomb location. They would cocoon the bag in layers of luggage and wet blankets, a desperate shield to blunt a blast. Not foolproof. Just the best shot we had. The cabin was now a locked world. The cockpit sealed like a fortress. The threat contained. The marshal on watch. And me just another body in seat 2. A pilot or not, my only role was to witness. Karen kept performing for her audience. The marshal stayed still, a coiled spring. The attendants smiled their professional smiles, hiding fear behind training as the plane bucked and rattled. We were alone in the sky, an isolated universe hurtling through chaos. And I couldn't shake the thought, this wasn't random. The storm, the theatrics, the planted bag, it was all engineered. Someone wanted us on the ground, here now. And they didn't care how many lives it risked. Minutes dragged like hours. Every groan of the fuselage, every flash of lightning lit up the cabin like a countdown. Rain pummeled the windows with a deafening roar. Then through a tear in the clouds I saw it. My city. The familiar grid of highways, the soft glow of the skyline. Home. But it didn't feel like safety. It felt like walking into an ambush. My phone buzzed. Lena. A flurry of texts. Emergency HOA meeting is starting. They're streaming it. The developer's there. He says the zoning variance is already a done deal. Another ping. Wait, he just said Karen Lane was delayed but will be here soon to cast the deciding vote. He said her flight was conveniently diverted. He's laughing about it, Evan. A cold anger rooted itself in my chest. They weren't even subtle. The medical call was cover. The diversion was strategy. They had used this storm, this aircraft, these people as nothing more than a taxi. A pawn in their game to cash out my neighborhood. The landing gear thudded down. Flaps extended with a low hum. Familiar sounds. Routine, comforting. The pilot flying was steady, skilled, fighting the crosswinds with subtle corrections. The runway lights broke through the storm white and red markers glowing like salvation, but my gut stayed knotted. Touching down wasn't an ending. It was the next chapter. The wheels hit hard, then again. Engines roared into reverse, shoving us into our seats. We were down. On the ground. Safe for the moment, except we weren't rolling toward the terminal. The plane taxied to a remote gate far from the main concourse. Outside, emergency strobes flashed blue, red, painting the rain-slicked tarmac in chaotic color. Police cruisers, fire rigs, an ambulance. This wasn't routine. They knew the aircraft slowed to a halt, engines sighing down. A new tension thickened the cabin. The storm inside was about to rival the one we'd just flown through. I glanced across the aisle. Karen Lane gathered her things, smirk tugging at her lips. She thought she'd won, but the jet bridge connected with a heavy metallic thunk, and I knew the real storm was only just about to begin. The captain's voice cut through the cabin, stripped of warmth, honed into steel. All passengers remain seated with your seat belts fastened. I repeat, everyone stays seated. It wasn't a request. It was command. And yet some people never listen. The main cabin door clicked open. Before the flight attendant could even finish unlocking it, a man shot up from economy. Slick suit, polished shoes, heavy gold signet ring flashing under the fluorescence. The fixer. He moved like a predator uncoiling, brushing past the startled attendant. "Sorry, connection to catch," he lied, voice smooth but edged with adrenaline. He thought he could vanish in the chaos. He hadn't counted on the net already tightening around him. From row 14C, my quiet neighbor was already on his feet. The paperback discarded. The air marshal. He flowed up the aisle, fast but controlled. "Sir," his voice was calm, but it had iron beneath it. "I need you to return to your seat." From where I sat, row 2, the whole scene was unfolding within arm's reach, but the fixer wasn't interested in seats. He bolted onto the jet bridge, angling not for the terminal, but for the emergency stairs, the kind that dropped to the tarmac. He meant to run. I was already unbuckled, instinct screaming one word: contain. I slid into the aisle, blocking his retreat back into the cabin. On the bridge, the marshal's voice boomed. "Federal agent stop." The fixer snapped, cornered. His hand dove into his jacket. When it came out, it held steel. Not big but sharp fast. A blade meant to kill hesitation. "Stay back." He barked, eyes wild. He didn't want to fight. He wanted a moment, a sliver of chaos to slip through, but he hadn't counted on me. I wasn't armed. I wasn't federal. But I had 20 pounds of tightly packed luggage in my hand. A weapon by another named Dodd. As he lunged past me, I moved not swinging but angling. I dropped my shoulder and rammed the hard corner of the bag into his wrist. The crack was sickening. The knife clattered to the floor, his hand limp with pain. That was all the marshal needed. He surged forward, a blur of practiced efficiency. And then the cavalry arrived, 2 airport police officers storming up the bridge. In seconds, it was over. The fixer was slammed against the corrugated wall, arms twisted, cuffs snapping shut. Rage and pain twisted his face as they dragged him down, and then his eyes found Karen Lane, standing in the aisle. Phone raised, her smirk replaced by horror. "You," he spat, his voice raw with betrayal. This was your plan. You set me up. The words cut like a blade. Passengers gasped. Phones rose higher, recording everything. Karen's jaw fell open. Color drained from her face. Her live stream narrative, her triumph, collapsed in real time. The fixer was hauled off, still shouting. The marshal secured the knife in an evidence bag with steady hands. He glanced at me, a sharp, wordless acknowledgement. I returned the nod. For a brief moment, we'd been a team. The physical threat was gone. But the real storm, Karen's storm, was only beginning. Authorities swarmed the cabin. TSA agents. FBI suits. The plane became a sealed crime scene. "Sir, I'm Agent Miller," a woman with sharp eyes said, approaching me. "You witnessed the bag?" I stood. Yes. My voice was even factual. I described the fixer's movements, the flash of the ring, the click of the overhead bin. No theories. Just data. And your name? Evan Cross. Occupation? A heartbeat of hesitation. Then, I'm a pilot. With this airline, her expression barely shifted, but I caught the flicker in her eyes. It explained everything. The calm, the details, the instincts. "Thank you, Captain Cross," she said quietly. "That will be useful." At the rear, agents in heavy bomb gear emerged with Sarah's tote now sealed in a containment case. Outside, flashing lights painted the rain-slicked tarmac as they loaded it onto a mobile screening unit. Meanwhile, Karen tried to salvage her story. Live again, voice trembling for effect. A terrorist. The crew did nothing. I feared for my life, but the performance fell flat. "Ma'am," Agent Miller approached, tone firm. "Turn off your phone." "This is a federal investigation," Karen bristled. "I have a right to record." "This airline—" "Now," Miller cut her off, her voice dropping to a dangerous register. "Or it becomes evidence." For once in her life, Karen Lane bent. Her hand shook as she killed the feed. Moments later, another agent leaned into Miller's ear. His words carried just far enough. Device was a high-power RF jammer. Not flight controls, but perfect for disrupting comms, GPS, passenger devices. We traced the purchase. Miller's gaze drifted back toward Karen. The storm wasn't over. It was just changing shape. The agent's voice was low, measured, but her words cut like glass. Corporate card. Shell Company. Oak Valley Holdings. My stomach dropped. That name. The developer, the same group trying to gut our neighborhood. But Agent Miller wasn't finished. The mailing address? A P.O. box. The same one listed for the Cedar Creek Homeowners Association. Bingo. The chain snapped shut. The jammer wasn't designed to crash the plane. It was worse. It was meant to blind us, to choke communications in the storm, sow panic, and force a diversion. Straight into their airport. A perfect guarantee that Karen Lane would make her meeting. Miller's gaze landed on Karen. Cold, silent, crushing. Karen shrank in her seat, the pieces of her empire crumbling around her. The fixer. The gate drama. The staged medical emergency. The jammer. All of it a single coordinated conspiracy. Also a petty tyrant could rig a homeowner's vote. And then my phone buzzed. Lena. Not a text this time, but a flood. Photos. PDFs. Screenshots. She'd been fighting her own war from the ground. The first image froze me. Karen's driveway, 7 a.m., caught on Mike's security cam. There she was shaking hands with the fixer, the envelope visible between them. Hours before the flight. Proof of collusion. Next, a catering receipt. Champagne, lobster tails, a victory party booked 2 days earlier at the developer's HQ. Paid with HOA funds. Our money. Landscaping dues and pool maintenance cash, repurposed into a celebration of betrayal. Finally, a screenshot from the HOA livestream chat. A message from Karen's ally. Don't worry, Karen has a plan. She be here. Vote happens tonight. Foreknowledge. Intent. The smoking gun. I crossed to Agent Miller and handed her my phone. She scrolled in silence. Her eyes hardened with every swipe. The photo of the fixer. The catering receipt. The smug chat. That, she said, handing it back, ties it with a bow. Karen Lane tried to look small, harmless. It was laughable. The airline's head of station security stepped forward, flanked by police. His voice carried through the hushed cabin. Karen Lane, on behalf of this airline, you are permanently banned from flying with us. We are referring this case to the FAA, TSA, and DOJ. The cabin gasped. A lifetime ban? In aviation, that was exile. Karen's face went chalk white, and then Agent Miller delivered the final blow. Karen Lane, she said, her voice flat, official. You are under arrest for conspiracy to interfere with flight crew duties, endangering the safety of an aircraft, and multiple federal offenses. The handcuffs clicked. The sound was deafening. The Queen of Cedar Creek, H.O., the woman who had terrorized families over mailbox colors, was frog-marched down the aisle. Cameras captured every second. For the first time in hours, the passengers erupted. Applause thundered through the cabin. Justice at 30,000 feet. The fixer was in custody. Karen was in custody. The plot shattered, but our fight wasn't finished. Not yet. The HOA meeting was still happening. And without its queen, her empire was about to collapse. By the time statements were done, it was nearly midnight. Rain misted the tarmac as I finally walked free. And there waiting by the curb was Lena. I dropped my bags and crushed her into my arms. You were incredible, I whispered. No, she said softly, eyes shining. We were. We drove home in silence, exhaustion settling like lead. But as we turned into our neighborhood, headlights sweeping across familiar streets, I saw the clubhouse still lit up. The emergency meeting was still in session, and the war for Cedar Creek wasn't quite over. Let's go, Lena said firmly. Let's finish this. We stepped into chaos. The developer had already vanished, fleeing the moment Karen's arrest hit the news. Her remaining allies on the board scrambled, stammering, trying to stall the vote. But the tide had already shifted. The clubhouse was packed with neighbors, dozens who had come after Lena's urgent text blasts. They'd seen the viral clips. They'd watched Karen hauled off in handcuffs. Mike, my neighbor, the quiet, retired accountant Karen once fined over a garden gnome, stood. His voice, steady and sharp, carried over the noise. I believe a motion is in order, he said. According to our bylaws, any board member charged with a felony can be removed by a vote of no confidence. I moved to remove Karen Lane as president. A woman I didn't recognize immediately seconded it. The vote was called. The result wasn't even close. Unanimous. The room erupted. Cheers shook the walls. In one evening, Karen's empire had collapsed. Mike was named interim president on the spot. His first act ordering a proper vote on the zoning variance, with full paper ballots mailed to every resident. Weeks later, the measure failed spectacularly, 98-2. The developer crumbled under lawsuits and federal probes, bankrupt within months. The fixer, real name Frank, flipped, cutting a plea deal and serving 3 to 5 years in minimum security. Karen Lane, stripped of power, drowning in legal fees, lost her home in a forced sale. Convicted on multiple federal counts, she was sentenced to 10 years. She would never board another plane again, except maybe on screen. Life in Cedar Creek healed. Actually, it thrived. The suffocating shadow of Karen's rule was gone. Neighbors started talking again. Smiles replaced suspicion. Mike proved to be steady, fair. The new board scrapped dozens of Karen's absurd rules. Basketball hoops reappeared. Gardens bloomed in every color. And yes, gnomes proudly stood in a few yards. Weeks later, I stood on my deck, grilling as the sun dipped into orange and violet. Kids laughed in the distance. Lawnmowers hummed. Normalcy finally. Lena came out, iced tea in hand, and slipped an arm around my waist. We watched the sky in quiet peace. "You never told me what you did on that jet bridge," she said softly. "I flipped a burger, the sizzle filling the pause." "I just solved a problem," I answered. It was true. I wasn't a hero, just a man trying to defend his home. Because sometimes protecting what's yours means noticing the smallest things. Trusting the gut. Acting when the moment demands it. The question that haunted me that day, how far will a man go to defend his own, was answered. He'll go as far as he must. Not with rage. Not with fists. But with calm resolve, sharp eyes, and the unshakable duty to safeguard the place he belongs. And it helps more than I can ever say to have a brilliant, loyal co-pilot watching your back. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to hit like to support the channel, subscribe for more thrilling neighborhood justice tales, and turn on the bell so you never miss what's next. Because sometimes the most extraordinary battles happen in the most ordinary places.